Hi, this is George, your neighborhood realtor, and today I have Eddie Lopez. He is the CEO and co-founder of EKJ Real Estate. Eddie, thanks so much for being here. I appreciate your time. I'm looking forward to everything that you have to share with us today.
Yeah, man. Hey, listen, the pleasure's all mine. I've been watching your series for a few weeks now. That's when I reached out. I was like, listen, if you need somebody, man, I'd be more than willing. And here we are, man. So I appreciate you having me on. We've got some cool info to throw out at everybody. Hopefully they find, some useful content. And it's a pleasure to be here, bro.
Awesome, thank you. So yeah, I wanted to do a different format. I know usually what I do with people that I interview is as they're doing the presentation, kind of do a Q&A, but I want to leave that for the end because you have so much information to share and so much valuable information to share. I don't want to interrupt you. So do your thing, prepare your presentation and we'll get started. But before we do that, Eddie, just can you just quickly explain, who you are, what you do, how long have you been in the industry that you're in, and why did you decide to join in the first place?
Yeah, man, of course. So like you said, my name's Eddie Lopez. I am part one of a two-man team. I work with my younger brother, the other co-founder of our company, EKJ. I'm Eddie. His name is Kyle, and then I've got a younger brother, 17, just about to graduate high school. His name is Jason. So that's how EKJ came about. My younger brother's 25. I'm 28. We've been doing this full time for about 3 years now. Currently, I'm coming from right now. I don't know if you could tell, as for the paint on my fingers, I'm coming right now from working at a property that we're flipping in Englewood. That'll be our 9th flip. A few weeks ago, we closed on our 10th wholesale. And this is what we do full time now. My background I'm a Rutgers University graduate. I triple majored in human resource management, communication, and organizational leadership. Graduated Rutgers in 2014. From there, I went into the luxury fashion world, specifically in a corporate sense. I worked at the Movado corporate headquarters for a few years. From there, I graduated. I was at Shiseido for 2 years. And that's really where I just kind of decided that was moving a little bit slow for us. Around the same time, my brother Kyle was graduating from NJCU. We had more or less began to dabble in real estate, a little bit of bigger pockets, a little bit of studying here and there. But his graduating was actually the catalyst to me leaving my corporate career just kind of cold turkey. So one day I decided, that's enough of that. He asked me, listen, Eddie, are we going to do this? Are we going to really go for this? Or are we going to, or am I going to go get a normal job? And that's when we made, the mutual decision together that I was going to leave. I was going to, and we were going to figure out, how to make it in real estate. The first year and a half was, an unbelievable climb, man. It was like trying to climb up a nice mountain in Crocs. But from all our negative lessons, we've been able to grow and build on them. I know it sounds cliche, but we made a lot of mistakes. We found a lot of answers, and thankfully to this day, our past 3 projects, they've all been, extremely profitable. They've all gone pretty much according to plan. We've been able to build a little bit of a team. We've got our full-time guys now as well. We're licensed and insured general contractors within the past 3-year time frame as well. And here we are, man. Now people have a desire to hear what I have to say, like you and a lot of people that are tuned in today. And like I said, man, for me, it's real humbling and just a pleasure to be able to say things that people want to listen to.
That's awesome. So why real estate? I mean, like you could have joined any other industry. Why do you feel you made the transition from corporate America to real estate specifically? Was there any particular reason?
Sure. Well, I mean, it's pretty simple, right? I read a quote once that said 95% of millionaires acquire their wealth through real estate. So I figured, I mean, if it works for them, it's got to work for us too. I've always been, as you could tell from like even being at Rutgers, picking my majors, it's always been about, I've always been, interpersonal communication has always been a strength of mine. So I figured, why not bring it into this world of real estate that doesn't have an additional barrier of entry. that doesn't require me to go back to school and completely, shift wings. So it was a pretty easy decision. Why real estate? I mean, I guess why not? I couldn't think of anything else that I can kind of start from zero and get somewhere with. And that's how we ended up here, man.
That's awesome. So yeah, without any further ado, why don't you get yourself started, prep everything up, and the subject that we're going to be discussing, or you're actually going to be sharing a case study, right, of one deal that you did where you were able to find, fund, fix, and flip a real estate deal, all within short amount of time frame. From what I understand, in around 4 months time frame, which is great. I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of investors in the real estate world would be interested in figuring out how you were able to achieve that in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible, man. I mean, like I said, this specific case study that I'm gonna go ahead and walk you guys through is a property that we did late last year, and everything really went perfectly on this one for us. Not to say that they'll all be like this. The one we're working on right now, amid the coronavirus concerns that we have to deal with, affecting our timelines. Our next one, we're really going down the same exact path that we were able to accomplish over here. So, yeah, for me, it's cool to go ahead and just kind of express how we did it, why we did it, not only for people to come in and say, you know what, I'm going to be a real estate investor tomorrow, but just so that people who, might think that they're stuck or think that this is just stuff that they see on TV, realize that it is real and that people like us can do really cool stuff in real life,
Right.
Let me see if I can figure out here. All right, so now we should have my screen up. Right, so I think we're all set. So this is real quick. I work real closely with Peak Private Lending as well. Paul and Glenn Gallucci over there. They're a part of our team, and we're a part of theirs. And having a good lender is real important in our industry. I mean, I'm sure you know more than anybody. So I try to plug them in anytime I can as well, because they really have been really helpful to my brother and I, and helping us achieve what we've achieved, and more importantly, as quickly as we can. So just a quick shout out to Peak Private Lending, Paul and Glenn over there. I initially made this presentation for one of their NJ Real Estate Investors Group meetings in Newark. So this is my second time I'm ever doing it, but it is some real cool information that I'm excited to go ahead and share with you guys. So we'll get started. Is getting your rehab done quickly. Here in this case with fast funding from Peak Private Lending. But more importantly, this is just an inside look at how my brother and I think. And I tried to put it into timelines, as you see on the screen now, so that you can, really get an idea and study it as opposed to just listening and take notes. So what I did was I actually broke it up into two different timelines. So there's the pre-construction timeline, which people don't necessarily think about too much. And then comes the good part. Then comes, now you own the property and you've got to go ahead and get the construction done on time. So I guess now looking at this again, this was a little bit over 1 year ago. Our pre-construction timeline, so this was 30 days. So the way that we found this property, we were actually doing what we call driving for dollars. And George, that's when we literally, my brother and I, we get in the car, we put some music on, we're driving around, just looking for really ugly houses. And that's what we did. So we found an ugly house. It was 208 Jefferson in Hasbrook Heights. I cold called the seller. Hey, Mr. Jenko, my name is Eddie Lopez. I buy properties just like yours. I buy them for cash. I buy them in their as-is condition. I'd love to come by, take a look, and make you an offer. For every one positive call that we have, I mean, we have 100, 150 negatives. This happened to be one of the good ones, obviously, right? So, after the initial calls, my initial meeting with the seller was on April 1st. It took us about 20 minutes to negotiate a price. And it took about 2 or 3 days for him to actually say, okay, Eddie, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to sign the contract. Let's go ahead and move, right? So 4/1, we have our initial contract. On April 4th, we have the property under contract. We met at a Dunkin' Donuts right around where the property was, and he went ahead and he signed the contract. That same day, the first thing I'm doing is I'm going home. I'm putting together a nice package, and I'm submitting my initial application for the lending. Again, in this case, it was to Peak. But I'm submitting my initial application, which is saying, listen, this is the property that we've got. This is the rehab that we think we have to go ahead and put into it. This is our plan, and this is what we think we're going to be able to do. And we know it, with them or any other lender, it's going to take a few days to get that back. But that's the first thing we do. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the investing formulas and whatnot. I won't get too far into that right now. But we know when we've got a deal because, Glenn and any other investors that you talk to, they're going to give you a pretty basic formula that your property has to fit before they're able to lend on it. And this one fit the formula to the T. This one fit the exact mold that we wanted it to. So while we know that Peak was reviewing the lending application, there were a few things that we had to do in between, a few things that we knew we were going to have to do. And the only reason that we had the confidence is in doing these and spending a little bit of money out of pocket while Peak was reviewing the application was because, again, we know exactly what they're looking for and we knew exactly what we had and we knew it would match up. There was absolutely no reason that they shouldn't have gone ahead and approved this property for us. So while they're reviewing, we're doing, first and foremost, our oil tank sweep. Again, this is something you definitely know on all properties that are being sold or bought. Especially in New Jersey right now, they're going to want to see an oil tank sweep. So we went ahead, we got that done. This lot happened to be a really thin lot. So we went ahead and just because we got a survey done, just to go ahead and include it in our application. On the 7th, so this was before we even got the green light, I already had my architect in the building. This property was actually a full gut, a 100% full gut. I mean, nothing in this house was good, besides some of the framing, and a little bit later when I show you the before and after pictures, you'll be able to get a good idea as to some of the changes we made. And this specific situation was a little odd too because the seller had actually inherited this property from his parents, but he hadn't got ahead and done the official execution of the will. So I'm helping him through all these things. As you see here, on the April 11th, we got the green light from Peak that the project will be funded. We were already running full speed, but now we have the green light, and now we're just flying towards the closing. On the 15th, before we even close, we're already getting our plan of action with our subcontractors together. I had mentioned earlier that my brother and I are now fully licensed and insured general contractors. And this was a full gut. So we're talking electricians, we're talking plumbers, we're talking HVAC guys, and a few other subs that we bring in for the mechanicals. We bring them all in, we get them on the same page. We have one meeting with everybody who's going to be working in the house. If somebody can't make it to that meeting, we reschedule. After that first meeting, everybody's in. We bring them their jackets for them to go ahead and fill out their permits. They give them to us. As you can see here, we actually closed on 4/20 in the morning. That afternoon, we already had all of our permits filled out, signed and stamped by all of our subs, and we submitted them to the city. We just brought a copy of the deed from the title agent. We submitted to the city. I said, listen, I own this property now. I want to submit my permits so that we can get started ASAP. So we closed that day, and something else that was pretty specific about this deal was that the seller was selling because he was actually in a little bit of a tough spot. He didn't have any money to move out. So, I mean, as you know, I'm sure, sometimes we got to get a little bit creative. So what we did with this guy was we actually included a contingency that said, all right, man, listen, on the day of the closing, we buy our properties cash and in as-is condition, as you know, on the day of the closing, you're going to get a check for X amount. With that check, we're going to go ahead and tack on an extra 12 days of access to the house for you So now you can go ahead and you can put your deposit on your storage space. You can go ahead and rent your truck. You can pay your guys. You can do whatever you need to do now that you got not a little bit of cash, because I remember this guy netted, I mean, well over $100,000 in what we were able to pay him. So now he actually had the funds to move forward. So we gave him 12 days. The 12 days felt like 12 months because we were so eager to get in and work. But, you know, your word is your word, and we gave him 12 days to remove his belongings. We helped him all that we could. But it didn't affect us too much because with these 12 days, our permits were still being reviewed by the city. So as eager as we were, we've learned the lesson already that you can't start working until the city approves you, because if not, you're going to have even more headaches. And that's what we did. So those 12 days worked to our advantage. And that's pretty much our pre-construction timeline and how we work things. Right? So moving on now, this next timeline that you see here is actually a construction timeline on how we were able to complete, and you know, not to tap ourselves on the shoulder or on the back or anything, but this is almost unheard of, man, for you to see anybody to come in and do an entire full gut rehab within 3 months. This is from the day we submitted our permits to the day that we got our final inspection. This all happened between May and July. The first 6 days of this project were the demolition, were the demo days. So 6 days of clean out. This one is actually easier than the one we're working on now, which isn't a full gut, because you can really just go in there and say, listen, I want everything stripped down to the studs and in the dumpster. We went through 4 40-yard dumpsters at this property. After our demo, I mean, after the framing is just kind of wiped dry, after all you see in the house is framing, lumber, and the occasional floor here or there, that's when we get into our next piece. So what you're going to see is everything that you see in green on the top. Those are the things that that we do in-house. Those are the things that my full-time guys do for us in our projects. And then towards the bottom, you're really going to see more of the stuff that we had to that we sub out to our plumbers, our electricians, you know, our HVAC guys. One of my best friends happens to run an HVAC company, so he takes care of that for us. But as soon as we're done with the demo, we go ahead and we start with our carpentry and reframing the entire house according to the blueprints that I went through and finalized with the architect. At the same exact time, we have our plumber, our electrician, and our HVAC guys in there going ahead and doing their roughing, right? So we did our demo. We're working on our reframing. They're working on their roughing. And this took us about 3 weeks. So in late May, we had our roughing inspections, and we actually passed 4 for 4, if I'm not mistaken. We passed each and every single one of them the first time, which is awesome. With that being said, late May, early June, we were able to go ahead and start closing up the walls. Sheetrock, tape, spackle, all our framing is finalized at this point already, and we're able to start closing them up. Obviously, this is when you start seeing the house come together, you know, but your own vision come out, because this is one of the cooler ones where we're able to go ahead and get full-blown architectural blueprints, which we're always excited about, and it's always a pleasure to bring them to real life. So once we start closing up the walls, now we've got our sheetrock up, our mud guys come in, which they're on our team as well. You know, they tape, spackle, and clean everything up. Now, this is about when my team gets started on the ceramic tiles in the kitchen, and this house happened to have 2 full bathrooms. Wow, so mid-June, while we're working on the kitchens and the bathrooms, this is when we go ahead and we get our exterior guys working on the exterior of the house. A little bit later, all this will really come together when you see the before and afters. So while they're working on the outside, we're working on the inside, putting down brand new hardwood floor. All this, again, begins around mid-June, staining and polishing the hardwood floor, the complete redo of the exterior, vinyl siding, new soffits, new trim work, pretty much new everything. And then late June, we also have, now that we passed our roughing inspections and our walls are up, we were able to bring the plumber, the electrician, and our HVAC guy back to go ahead and finalize their job and put all their finishes in. July came pretty quickly. You know, once our walls are up, our bathrooms are fully installed, our kitchens are fully installed. Now it's just kind of time for us to go ahead and do our interior finishes. Again, this is something that my brother, our main guy, Durban, who's been working with us for a few years now. This is where they come in, they paint, they do their trim work. We're actually in this stage of our process in our Englewood property right now, and we refinished the driveway and the porch around this time as well. Late July, we had our final inspections, and then we actually sold this property a few days after my birthday in late August. This property, we had an open house on Sunday, and we accepted an offer on Monday. So this property we actually only had on the market for 1 day. But I know I kind of went through it pretty quickly, but I just want to give people an idea of how we work and how meticulous we are about having everybody on our team on the same page and the schedules that we try to stick to. Because obviously, you know, in my game, time is money. I mean, the name of the game is speed and execution. With the level of detail, it's going to go ahead and get the property sold on time. And I feel like we were really, really good about accomplishing this in our Hashbrook Heights property. Kind of just to put a name to the face now, I want to give you, I'm not even sure if you've seen this quite yet, but I want to give you and then everybody who, who signed on today or is watching this, the recording or whatever, just so you can put a name to the face, an idea of what we're talking about. So when we bought the property, it looked just like this. Again, we buy our properties in as-is condition, meaning that the seller can take what they like, and then everything that they don't want, they leave behind. We do our best to donate most of it to charity, and when we can, we just launch into a dumpster. But this is exactly what the property looked like the day we purchased it. There's the exterior. This is the upstairs bathroom and one of the upstairs bedrooms. This is what our basement looked like. It turns out the guy actually used to make his own bullets. This house was built in the early 1900s. Used to make his own bullets, a lot of heavy machinery, a whole bunch of stuff down there. On this screen, you can see what we're looking at in the in the first floor. A lot of the walls you're going to see are going to be knocked down with the final product. This was the living room in the first floor, the bathroom on the first floor. Again, this was all fully gutted. Everything was out. This was the kitchen on the first floor. And then now we'll kind of get into our final product with some side-by-sides as well. So by the end of our product, this is what it looked like. What we bought on the left and our final product on the right. Again, brand new patios, brand new everything. We even put down new grass, new siding. This is what our finished product first floor looked like. We decided to go with the real open concept and putting a master bedroom in the back, where we installed brand new hardwood floors, a nice dark color, campfire ash paint, bright white moldings, and all state-of-the-art appliances, as you guys can see. This was the first floor bathroom. We went with the glass subway tile, penny tile on the floor, simple vanities, simple mirrors. This was our second floor bathroom. Again, glass tile. It was a little bit of a different color, a hexagon tile on the floor. Just another quick tip about this property. I know that, and not to go against the grain, but we just couldn't really bring ourselves to fully stage a property because of the cost. I know everybody says you got to do it and it works, and your percentage is this much higher, that it'll sell this much quicker, but I couldn't bring myself to pay the amount of money that they were asking for the staging. So what I did was I actually brought my mom in, and I gave her, and we gave her our credit card, and we said, Mom, listen, go have yourself a good old time at home, Marshall's, Home Goods, wherever it is that you go. And I want you to go ahead and buy a few things so that we can stage the bathrooms and the kitchens. So those are the only sections of this house that we actually staged. As you can see here, remember the basement? This is what the finished product of our basement looks like now. And then here, even better, a side-by-side of the wall that we knocked down on the first floor to create the open concept between the kitchen and the living area. This was a hallway that we built ourselves and just kind of slid a doorway to the left to create this type of look in the master bed. This was the side entrance that we had brought back to life. This is a cool side-by-side of the second floor bathroom, so you can see the progress that we were able to make. This was looking out of one of the second floor bedrooms. This was on the second floor as well. And you can see it's just a real 360 change, man. We're real proud of this one. I think this was our best product, our best project to date, and one that we had a lot of fun with. Here's my brother alongside myself. Again, we were real proud of this one, man. In Hasbrook Heights, it was real close to home. You know, from our perspective, yeah, we've been doing this for 3 years full time, but we've only been successful at it for a few months now, maybe 1 year. So again, we've made a lot of mistakes. We've come a long way. We were extremely proud of this one. And that's kind of it, man. That's what we were able to do over here.
So Eddie, this was a lot of great information. What would you say, what has been, in your opinion, the most important aspect of the process that's allowed you to be successful? Like, in other words, do you feel you can be successful in the industry that you're in if you treat every deal simply transactional, like meaning, you know, this is a deal, these are the numbers, this is what we have to go with, not really take into consideration the seller situation, pretty much, you know, here's our offer, take it or leave it, if not, we'll move on to the next house, it's no big deal? Or do you feel that there is some type of personal, not personal interest, but like, you know, emotional type of feel where you can almost, it's a win-win situation. In other words, you offer the seller this amount of money for the house because, you know, they're a distressed seller, they have a property, they want to get rid of it, they just don't know how to. You can possibly offer them an option to do that. And you know, you can work with the seller. You mentioned, you know, creating creative options for the seller where it's a win-win, where they can win, they can kind of like get what they want, and you guys get what you want. Like, you know what I'm trying to say? So like, do you feel,
Yeah, no, of course.
being just transactional, or is there some type of personal involvement where you kind of have to be empathetic for what the owner is going through and kind of work around that?
100%, man. I think that's more important than really anything. Is really being able to go ahead and put yourself in the seller's shoes, understanding where they're coming from, helping them understand where you're coming from as well. Because remember, at the end of the day, you know, this is what we do for a living, and this is how we make our money. This is how we put food on the table. But by all means, I mean, whether you're a realtor, whether you're an investor, whether you're a contractor, this is always and forever will be a people first business. You know, they're going to go ahead and they're of course, numbers are king, right, in any industry, but they're going to go ahead and they're going to say, listen, George showed me respect. George came by, walked me through what his process looks like, walked me through why he's saying the things that he's saying and why he believes what he believes. And he took the time to come out and do it. Whereas the other guy may have just said, all right, here's your CMA. This is what I think your house is worth. Here's my offer. If you like it, great. If not, you know, I'm still going to be okay. Now, by all means, man, this is 100% a people business. And the older I get, the more that I am in the industry, the more I'm realizing that it's really like compounding interest, right? Because you can nurture one good relationship over here, and then another, and then another, and then another, but you don't know when you're going to have to come and tap into the first one or the second. It's 100% a people business, man. I mean, you know, I've seen somebody do business with me, even though my offer was $15,000 less than the next investor, for the simple fact that they just like me. Now that comes with, you know, I dedicated a lot of time to it and time to understanding their situations, kind of like we said earlier. But it's always going to be people first, man. And that's kind of where I think I'm able to really tap into my background in the corporate world and in what I was able to, you know, study. And that's why we've been able to get some of the deals under contract that we have.
Right. And now, not that you mention it, I think it works two ways too, because like you said, maybe you make an offer to a seller, to a homeowner,
Right.
who may or may not accept it. but because of the level of service that you provided, because you took the time out to explain the process and explain to them, these are the options. This is what I can offer you. This is what I can, um, provide for you and help you in your need. They may accept it, which is great, obviously, because that's a deal that you're going to get on the contract and sell, or they may not. But because of that level of service that you've provided, maybe they know someone else who's in this similar situation where they can refer you over and say, hey, it didn't work out with us, Eddie, but I have a friend that is in the same situation. Maybe you can help them out. So I think it works. I think it works either way.
I mean, that's the name of the game. I mean, those calls are music to my ears, and it just kind of comes down to just kind of being a good person about it,
Right. And you mentioned too, which I'm sure a lot of people interested in investing are curious to find out as well. You mentioned when you're working with a lender, there's a certain formula, there's a certain number that they're looking for to fund the deal, to have it make sense for them, to have it make sense for you. I know we don't have too much time, but maybe could you kind of go over that process, over that formula? Like in your head, when you find a deal, what numbers are you looking for? What formula do you put in place to make a deal make sense for you, make a deal make sense for your lender?
Yeah, so it's actually like super simple. And I don't have a way to write it down, but if anybody's got a pen and paper, you can really just write it down. So what we do is, we start with what we call our ARV and we work backwards. So the ARV is what we call the after repair value. ARV is what we can sell the property for once we are all the way finished with it. So we take 70% of our ARV and we subtract our rehab costs from that. So for example, if I know that I can go ahead and I can sell a house, a finished product of a house, a beautiful home for $100,000 just to keep things easy. $100,000 will be our ARV. So we'll go ahead and we'll take 70% of $100,000, which in this case is $70,000. And if my brother comes in and says, Eddie, yeah, I can do this, this, and this, and I think it's going to cost me $20,000, then we subtract our rehab costs, which in this case is $20,000. And then that's where we find what we call our MAO, our maximum allowable offer. So it's really just 70% of your ARV minus your rehab costs are going to be, that's going to be your maximum allowable offer. Just to try to keep it simple. I mean, if we want, we could do a whole nother video on that aspect of it.
I think
but that's just kind of a little taste, you know what I mean?
Right. Okay. All right. So that's a great formula. So take the ARV, times it by 70% and minus the construction costs, and that would be your maximum allowable offer.
Just like that.
Awesome.
Yep.
And you also mentioned driving for dollars, which is great because one, it's something that obviously you have to pay for gas, but it's not like a subscription that you have to, there's not a software that you have to pay monthly. It's something that you can do on your spare time, or if you have like a schedule that you follow, a prospecting method that you do every morning. In your experience, what's been the best method of sourcing these deals and finding these distressed properties? Is it driving for dollars? Is there a specific software that maybe you could recommend somebody who prefers cold calling versus driving around the neighborhood? Like, what has been your experience?
So cold calling is actually an aspect of driving for dollars, and I mean we're huge proponents. Driving for dollars is the way to find good deals. I mean, you can pay for all the systems that you like, you can pay for all the websites that you like, but there's nothing more than, because finding the address is one thing, but there's a lot of work that goes into it afterwards. Now you've got to find who the owner is. Now you've got to find the owner, right? You've got to go ahead and skip trace and cold call those numbers. But driving for dollars, like we said, I mean, aside from a little bit of gas, it's free. You're seeing these properties. They're not just one of 200 addresses that you're going to find on a list. You're seeing these properties. You're familiar with these properties. You can see it, taste it, feel it, touch it, whatever you want to call it. And now when you go ahead and into the next steps, you find the homeowner on the tax records, you skip trace it, which that can cost a little bit of money. You skip trace these numbers. but at least now that you're working with something that's real, as opposed to just going on, nothing against it. I mean, hopefully one day I graduate through the ranks of this game that we're playing, and one day, I have no choice but to buy the list and hire somebody to do this and do that. But there's nothing better than driving for dollars, especially for someone who's just starting out, because it's easy to get discouraged when you're going after properties that you've never seen, that you're not even really quite sure exist. But that's it, man. Driving for dollars is number one by far. I mean, until you graduate to the point where you don't have time for it anymore, which I'm kind of realizing now, the more time I spend in doing what we do, the more I kind of see properties just kind of being thrown at me and deals being thrown at me. But I'll never abandon driving for dollars, because I think that is the number one best way to get properties where you want them, at the price that you want them, and the easiest way to stay motivated.
And for someone who maybe wants to start out in this business and be an investor, is there a strategy where you can recommend, like, where would you start? Would you start in a market that you're familiar with, like in your hometown neighborhood, or is it too saturated to start there? Do you go specifically to a county or a town where you do research and you see that's the most amount of foreclosures and you can possibly find more deals that way? Like, what would you recommend for someone looking to implement that system in their prospecting schedule?
Sure. In December 2019, we closed a wholesale, and it was a $50,000 wholesale, and it was a house that was maybe 8 houses down from the house where my brother and I live.
Right.
Man, you can be walking your dog around your own neighborhood and have an eye out for properties. That's where I would start. I would start right in your own neighborhood. Just keep it simple. Keep it as simple as you possibly can, because it's easy to wanna, and we've learned this the hard way too, as I was telling you how we used to start doing like bigger 3-family guts. One thing you've got to realize, and it's imperative, is that there's really levels to what we do. Start in your hometown neighborhood. Start with a list of just 5. Go out and find 5 properties that you think are distressed and likely abandoned, and start from there. That's the best advice I could give you. You can try to do research on counties. For someone like you, you speak that language already. So you understand what an absorption rate is. You understand, what's selling, what's not, how many days on market is good, how many isn't. So you get that, and we speak this language already. But for somebody who's just starting out, take a walk around your block, take a walk around your neighborhood, find 5 properties that you think are distressed or abandoned. Find the owner, do your best to get in touch with them, write them a handwritten letter if you have to. And that's where I'd start. There's no reason to try to jump and be the Warren Buffetts of the world, or your local, real estate investor who's doing 10, 15, 20 deals at a time, because it just doesn't happen like that. Start in your own neighborhood, keep it small, keep it tight, and it'll be easy to stay motivated that way.
I think that's great advice. And then if you could, Eddie, if you can provide one tip that you feel has been helpful to you in growing your real estate career and growing your business, that you've learned, maybe like you said, the hard way, or maybe not, you haven't learned the hard way, but this is something that's helped you. What would be one tip, the most important thing, or one of the most important things for someone who wants to get into the business of either wholesaling or finding, funding, fixing, flipping a real estate deal? What would be that one tip that you could offer a new person joining the industry?
Yeah, I was thinking about this last night. I figured this question was coming. One tip: rough draft moves. Encourage mistakes. It's cool to go out and make mistakes. You're supposed to be making mistakes. If you're not making mistakes, you're not trying enough. So just make rough draft moves. And if there are mistakes, it's a lesson. If it goes well, then good for you. One of the things that my brother and I really stress is that, man, we're allowed to make mistakes. I mean, I'm allowed to really botch this, or he's allowed to, put in a door all crooked, but we only allow each other to make mistakes one time. So rough draft moves. I mean, just go out and try. I mean, what's worst case scenario? Go out, try whatever it is that you've got going on brewing up here that you learned online or you heard from you on one of your live webinars or whatever it may be. Just go out and make what we call your rough draft moves. It's cool to make mistakes. Just don't make them twice.
Right. Okay. So pretty much it's okay to not be perfect, to not know everything in the industry. If you make a mistake, it's fine, but learn from it and avoid that in the future.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. That's great, Eddie. And if someone wants to reach out to you, let's say if it is a seller who has a property that's distressed and they don't know what to do with it, or if someone just in general has questions about the real estate industry, about wholesaling, about fixing and flipping, what's the best way that they can contact you so they can reach out?
Sure. So the absolute best way is on Instagram. So you can follow me and on Instagram, I post daily stories, just kind of showing the good, the bad, the reality of what it is to be, my brother and I. So I'm a pretty cool follow on Instagram, but you can always DM me there. It's at EKJ Eddie, EDDIE. So E is in Eddie, K is in Kyle, J is in Jason, EDDIE. You can always reach out to me there. You can message me, DM me there, or even comment on some of our content. Aside from that, you can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/EKJ Real Estate. Or you can reach out to me on my number. It's 201-549-9522.
Great. And I'll put your information down low as well. So if anyone does have a question or they can reach out to you, they can contact you directly. I appreciate your time.
Oh, man. Hey, the pleasure's all mine, man. It really is. I appreciate you having me on. You've had some cool people on, and for me, it's humbling to be in company of those people that you've had on. And man, no, thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. So, and I'm looking forward to a next video. We definitely have to do a part 2 to it, where we can maybe dive into a little bit of analyzing a deal, picking out, like you mentioned, maybe doing a formula. How can you dive deeper into estimating like your renovation costs, what to expect, how much buffer do you need in case you go over budget? There's so much.
I'd love to, man.
That I think someone can be aware of, that would be beneficial, and I would love to cover that with you as well.
For sure, my man. 100%. I'm around. We got time. Let's try to do something productive with it.
Right. Okay. Awesome, Eddie. I appreciate your time and looking forward to our next conversation.
Sounds good, George. I'll talk to you, man. Thank you.
Thank you.